So I need to apologize in advance because my usual format for this sort of thing is 45 minutes to an hour with a lot of slides. Fortunately, Joey saved you all from that today. So thank him, not me. Anyway, my name is Shiloh Tillemann-Dick. I'm the head of research for the National Venture Capital Association. On a good day, I'm helping the most innovative parts of America's public and private sectors work together for the good of society. On a bad day, I bounce between lawmakers, telling them the world would be a better place if only people could do less paperwork. And then I turn around and tell VCs that it would make the lawmakers I talk to so very happy if they would just be willing to do more paperwork. So why am I here? Well, aside from my annual Malort restock, I'm a huge fan of Joey, Salvador, and all things Chicago blend. And when they asked me to talk about the shape of the market and some possible ways forward, I was happy to oblige. So quick show of hands. Who basically knows what venture capital is? Okay, good. I'm actually going to skip 2 paragraphs. This is good for all of us. The first thing I want you to know then is we're in a new era for VC. These transitions are always a little blurry at the edges, but most people agree that the last big VC era stretched from about 1991 to 2022. It was an age of low interest rates, low trade barriers, and unprecedented global flows of people, goods, and data. The Berlin Wall had fallen, the internet was democratizing information, China was integrating into the global economy. Things felt good. In fact, in 1992, a book called The End of History topped bestsellers lists. Its thesis, humanity had reached the end of its ideological evolution. Liberal democracy and free market capitalism had won, and nations would henceforth settle their disputes through peaceful arbitration. Yeah, well, so it's 2025. I have bad news. First, I don't have a book to sell you. And then secondly, history is back with a vengeance. So what does the return of history mean for you? I can't say, but I can give you some thoughts about what it means for US VC and entrepreneurship more broadly. Venture investment hit its all-time peak in 2021. $359 billion deployed against 19,626 companies. It was euphoric. COVID vaccines had arrived and we were going to reinvent the world. We'd work and play in the metaverse, ride Pelotons, and pay for it all with Dogecoin. Then came 2022. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and the geopolitical and economic dogmas that had already been weakened by COVID were blown apart. Utility maximization is great for understanding the logic that keeps the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker employed, but the logic breaks down when trying to explain why the butcher decides it's time to go to war with the candlestick maker and initiate an inevitably ruinous conflict. It turned out that there were motivations that were even stronger than material gain, and we needed to change how we did business to account for that. But you didn't come here for a geopolitical lesson, so let's get back to the finance. Inflation soared, and in response, the Fed hiked interest rates from 0.25% to 5.5% over just 17 months. Fixed income assets, long considered virtually uninvestable, suddenly looked dazzling. Treasury bills were yielding 5.5% with zero risk. That made early-stage cash-burning startups look a lot less appealing than they used to. I mean, seriously, like, who wants to risk their retirement on a pre-revenue software platform play when you can get 5.5% backed by the full faith and credit of the US government? The math was changing, and so was the market. Fundraising got harder, deployment slowed, exits dried up, and dynamism gave way to stagnation. The music stopped and there weren't enough chairs for everyone who had been dancing. Welcome to the new normal, an environment where VCs are competing directly with the US Treasury for investment, capital deployment takes longer, and liquidity is in short supply. Blitz scaling and Bored Apes are out, financial fundamentals and flat rounds are in. I'm sure this isn't news to many of you. We've all seen the dearth of public listings and lackluster M&A activity, and unless you're one of a select few AI companies, getting funded isn't nearly as easy as it used to be. Once again, we're in a new world, and there are some hard truths founders and funders need to know if they want to thrive in the current market. After all, as my incredibly fit younger brother tells me at every opportunity, I never met anyone who got into shape by just thinking about working out. So, myth 1. there's a mountain of dry powder waiting to be unleashed. If you check our latest publication, it says that there's about $301 billion of dry powder sitting on the sidelines. A lot of that capital was raised for a market that no longer exists, and the GPs know it. The dry powder issue is going to resolve in one of two ways. Oh, wait, let's see. Turn page. Okay. Option one, managers uncomfortable with the current market will stretch out and fund lives indefinitely, waiting for market conditions they're comfortable with. Many of these will become zombie funds, technically alive, but not doing much. They turn conservative, pass on deals, frustrate LPs, and drift about hoping for a change in the market. Option two, they'll look at the market and recognize that, well, the idea was good for the market they raised in. That market doesn't exist anymore. Then they'll release their LPs from their commitments and go back to the drawing board. This is a tough choice to make, but it preserves reputations and resets the table for the next round. Hard truth, or myth number two, pardon me. Valuations from the last few years still make sense. Hard truth, they don't. What might have worked in 2021 probably doesn't today. Founders and funders need to be efficient with their capital and make sure their business models have a clear path to viability which accurately reflects today's market. Ideally, the path is obvious and involves no hard choices. However, I think we all know that that's not always going to be the case. The path forward could involve flat rounds, down rounds, or just stretching out the current runway as long as possible. The thing is, those choices are best made early when there's more optionality. So if you need to be having those conversations, start having those conversations. Myth three, high valuations are the ultimate goal. Hard truth, unicorns are not all they're cracked up to be. Unicorns are magical, graceful, elusive, solitary, and fictional. Historically, when travelers thought they saw a unicorn, it was a rhinoceros, or if you're feeling romantic, an oryx. Awesome creatures, but those are very real and well suited for their environments. I want to preface this by saying I want every founder and every manager to be successful, and I'm probably the US innovation ecosystem's second biggest cheerleader. Isn't it worth entertaining the idea that there aren't actually horses with giant horns sticking out of their foreheads because it wouldn't work very well? Like, VC is an inherently risky business. I get that. But we've all seen companies that chased their valuation a little too hard and then they got burned later as a result. So, what should we be aspiring to be, if not the unicorn? Firstly, I think we should always aim high. I mean, I'm registered for the Marine Corps Marathon, but getting to the finish line involves a lot of boring work. All this is to say, I hope that you will find that graceful, mythical creature, but I also hope you realize that you could do a lot worse than investing in or being a metaphorical mule. I love mules. They're sure-footed, hardy, capable of pulling triple their body weight, will happily sleep outside, and can survive on thistles. They might not win many beauty contests, but they're consummate team players capable of doing everything from pulling a cart to fighting off coyotes. If you haven't guessed yet, I spent some time on a farm growing up. What I'm saying is that if your goal is to goose the numbers and chase the highest valuation you can, you might be working off an old playbook. Instead, put your time into running the best business possible. If you're showing up every day and delivering value for your colleagues, your customers, and investors, the valuation will take care of itself. So remember, you can chase that unicorn through the woods, you might catch it, but you also might wind up cold, empty-handed, and alone. Conversely, you can lock in with your team, figure out how to complement each other's strengths and minimize each other's weaknesses, and build value every day. Personally, I know which one I'd choose. Anyway, that's enough about now. Let's look forward. I couldn't do this talk without mentioning AI. It is the most exciting place in venture right now. The opportunities, capital invested, and hype cycles are all enormous. But for starters, I want to get one thing out of the way. I don't care how many NVIDIA Blackwell CPUs you string together, they're not going to go all Raiders of the Lost Ark on you and let you commune with the divine. However, the technology has opened up an incredible new world of possibilities. Honestly, I was bouncing ideas for this section off my wife, and she said that I should just talk about what I do with AI because she thought it was a good case study, so blame her if this is boring. I'm not the world's greatest software engineer. I know how and why things might be useful, but I've always struggled with making good generalizable code that is more than single purpose, so putting in the time to write a bunch of Python often wasn't worth it. Now I use a bevy of AI tools to help me generate scripts that do everything from analyze file structures to make my PowerPoint slides. I've managed to take multiple workflows that used to be repetitive multi-day tasks that I had to do several times a year, and now they take me a few minutes. So it has been a remarkable boon to me how, just using a couple of tools thoughtfully. Until we enter a radically different computational paradigm, AI is at its best augmenting human talents, not replacing them. Numerous companies have gotten burned by trying to cut humans out of the loop, and in comparison, tools which make people faster and more efficient are seeing incredibly enthusiastic adoption. Biotech and next-gen computing are two areas that I'd love to go on and on about, but I'll have to save those for next year when I promise less of the conversation will be about livestock. We're living in interesting times. The old playbook of raise fast, spend fast, and grow at all costs is dead. Investors need to remember that every investment they make is a relationship which is going to last years. They can't just cut checks anymore. They need to think carefully about how they can support their portfolio companies over the long haul. Entrepreneurs need to build businesses that reach economic viability sooner, because the days of burning money indefinitely are gone. Unit economics are back, and we're probably better off for it. Despite all of the disruption, America is still the best place in the world to start a company. We have the best universities, the deepest capital markets, and a culture that celebrates risk-taking. The fundamentals are still there. We just need to focus on building real values for real customers. Two final notes. To entrepreneurs, don't be afraid to get dirty. We're not living in glamorous times, and that's fine. Adversity sharpens focus, and right now great teams have the tools to have more impact, more efficiently, faster than ever before. To investors, honestly, this is a great time to be funding companies, but I'd encourage you to go into pitches with an open mind. You need to make your capital go farther and return liquidity to your investors faster than you used to. And the people who will help you do that might be the ones you least expect. The future belongs to those who are willing to show up every day and relentlessly execute on real problems until they triumph. Eventually, the teams who are willing to do that seemingly boring work, they start to make it look easy. People start to wonder what it was that made them so successful. They start telling stories, and the little game of telephone starts going, and before long, that mule becomes a unicorn. So let's stop chasing fairy tales, let's get back to work, and let other people tell stories about us. Thank you.